It's Mother Nature gone wild.
This beast, this thing in the sky.
And there's nothing you can do to stop her.
Oh my God, the building's gonna fall.
It's day 3 of Forces of Nature.
On tonight's show, iceberg dead ahead.
No vessel has struck an iceberg since the Titanic 103 years ago.
And that's all thanks to a dedicated crew of iceberg hunters.
It's just so hot. Where the are the trees up?
When you take on Mongolia, you're taking on Mother Nature.
And the world's fastest drummer is a human force of nature, all thanks to his souped-up nervous system.
1, 2, 3.
Another explosive day of Forces of Nature here on Daily Planet. I'm Zaya Tong.
And I'm Dan Riskin. We'll get to the bottom of that eruptive force a little later in the show, which, yes, means we'll get to do that again.
But we're kicking things off with an icy story on the very day the Titanic sank 103 years ago.
Beautiful, mysterious, but deadly. Icebergs are silent killers when they float into the shipping lanes of the North Atlantic.
So icebergs are very dangerous because most of their mass is under the surface. And in this area, it's particularly dangerous because Newfoundland is actually the rainiest, the snowiest, the foggiest area in Canada. And oftentimes there's no visibility out there in the regions that we patrol. I'm Commander Gabrielle McGraw, and I'm the commander of the U.S. Coast Guard International Ice Patrol. The mission of the International Ice Patrol is to monitor the iceberg danger in the North Atlantic Ocean and to provide relevant iceberg warnings to the maritime community.
Some moderate turbulence in the vicinity of St. John's around takeoff.
This C-130 will put their eyes in the skies at about 300 meters above the ocean on a pre-planned flight path.
Right. I'll take another one to your side too. I'll take that one on the right if you have some.
Today we are doing a flight along the interior coast of Newfoundland and heading out through the Strait of Belle Isle to look for icebergs.
The International Ice Patrol has been scouring the Grand Banks of Newfoundland for icebergs for over 100 years, a proud tradition set in motion by a famous disaster.
On April 15th, 1912, the Titanic struck an iceberg and sank on the Grand Banks of Newfoundland with the loss of 1,500 lives. After that tragic incident, the international community came together to try to prevent incidents like that from happening again. No vessel heeding the International Ice Patrol warnings has struck an iceberg since the Titanic 103 years ago.
Information from this patrol will be put onto a map for mariners.
Where we place an iceberg limit, which is basically a fence in the water that says if ships stay to the east and to the south of that line, then they will avoid the danger of an iceberg collision.
Today's mission starts with dropping a tool into the ocean that will track the currents moving the icebergs.
Okay, in this box we have a surface velocity program drifting buoy, and we're going to be dropping this on the Grand Banks of Newfoundland.
This buoy, launched when the box hits the water, will sink down 50 meters. It's just one of the tools of the trade.
I got that one on radar off to the right at our 3 o'clock.
We use the Elta 360-degree radar. The main tool for that is to detect and actually identify the iceberg. Typically plan 25-mile track spacing on all of our flights so that we can see on either side of the aircraft and look for the targets.
The icebergs are trickling in.
Do you see that one, Mark? So what we're seeing out here right now is a lot of sea ice. It's just when the salt water and the surface freezes. And then so we're looking for stronger features of white that are pointing out of the sea ice. They provide a good shadow with their elevation above the sea ice, so that's typically what I see up here as a pilot first.
The mission stays the same, but the results can change drastically from year to year.
This year and last year, we've seen more sea ice than they had seen in the past 2 decades. And what the sea ice does for the icebergs, it actually protects them from deterioration from the waves. In 2013, there was not a lot of sea ice in this area, and we only had 13 icebergs in the shipping lanes. And then in 2014, we had 1,546 icebergs in the shipping lanes.
You got that, Ryan? It's out in the sea ice, so you see the opening of the sea ice.
Once the icebergs are detected, spotters Ryan and Mark take over.
What we do is we visually confirm that they are icebergs, and then we also grab their size and shape.
Mark, we have 2 more off the nose here.
Roger that.
The human element to our mission is very critical. However, sometimes it just really can't tell what they are. Oftentimes ships look like icebergs, icebergs look like ships, and we need those visual observations in the windows to confirm exactly what we're seeing out there.
We have a reticle system inside our binoculars, and what that does is we have a chart that identifies about the distance from the plane to the actual iceberg, and we get a good size and shape to it.
That guy's huge over there, too. That one is really big.
An iceberg has such a big draft that it'll catch the current and actually move it through the sea ice, so it looks like it has a wake, almost like a vessel has as it's going through the water. That's a quick, kind of quick and easy way to identify an iceberg in sea ice. It's obviously a lot easier.
Oh, yeah,
over
Mark,
water.
there's a huge one coming down right below the wing. Right below the wing.
They're coming fast and furious now.
Mark, if you want to cluster some of those guys out there on the left, you can might as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's like 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. There's like right there. Yeah, like 6 or 7.
Mark, do you want to put it in your window? Do you want to? No, I got it.
A really big flat one in the distance.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, I think so. Holy crap.
It is. Yeah.
Ryan, you're gonna have a huge tab on your side. It's huge. So big. Like loop around it? Yeah, no. I'll just do turn here. You're gonna see it right now. It's going under the wing in like a second.
There it is right there.
So today, we've been able to see up to 20 miles away, and within that view from our position out to 20 miles on both sides, we've been picking up clusters about sometimes up to 10 icebergs in one spot. So we have like a very, 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 very large category.
We covered 1,700 nautical miles of distance, and we located 353 icebergs. And this is the only location in the world where you have major shipping lanes intersecting with a thoroughput of icebergs. And so we do what we do so that we can protect those ships coming through this region.
Okay, from giant icebergs off Newfoundland, we're turning now to the terrifying force of sandstorms. Las Vegas and parts of California and Utah were blasted in the last 24 hours with 130-kilometer-an-hour winds that stirred up desert sand and really made for extremely dangerous and in some cases deadly driving conditions.
Now, being inside a car during a sandstorm would be pretty scary, but imagine having to walk through not one of them, but several as part of a 78-day solo trek across Mongolia.
To be in the middle of a sandstorm is quite intimidating. Actually, it's really dark. It's loud. You've got to really cover up your skin. It's quite ferocious in a way that it completely disorientates you at the same time. I'm Dykes, and I'm the first person in the world to walk solo and unsupported across Mongolia. The expedition saw me covering 1,500 miles over the Altai Mountains, across the Gobi Desert and up through the Mongolian steppe. I decided to take on this expedition because I was looking for my next, big challenge. I was young, healthy, and I wanted to take on another big expedition. And Mongolia just stood out to me as being, really extreme, varied amount of weather and terrain along the way. Storm coming! This involved a lot of training, mentally and physically, really. But on the physical side of things, I was competing against the locals in Muay Thai in Thailand. When I returned back home into the UK, I was flipping a tractor tyre, this thing here. I really had to build up my inner core strength, ready to pull 120 kilograms across the country. I took the trailer across Mongolia because I needed that to survive. That was like my life capsule, it held all of my water, it held my ration packs, my cooking equipment, protective clothing, obviously to face the snow blizzards in the Altai and then the sandstorms in the Gobi Desert. The terrain's quite difficult, pulling the trailer through the sand in the Gobi was extremely tough, and each step was just 100% pure effort. During the day it was extremely hot and I faced over 40 degrees Celsius. It was quite intense. It's just so hot, there's no trees. I've not seen any trees in Mongolia whatsoever. I slipped into heat exhaustion and was very quickly slipping into heat stroke. I was only about 3 days away from my next settlement, which holds my next water source. And I was pretty convinced that if I didn't make that next water source, I would have died out in the Gobi Desert. My first sandstorm I came across in Mongolia was actually heading up towards a city called Altai. This one was only minor. I could see it from the distance and I knew that I was walking, right into it. But it was a lot stronger than I expected. When it hit me, it completely, I had to keep my eyes shut, take off the harness of my trailer and search through my bags to find, these pair of goggles here. to wrap my face up, put my hat on, and even get a fleece on, because it wasn't just the sand, but it was also the gravel and pebbles that were whipping my skin pretty bad. The biggest sandstorm I faced was heading deep into the Gobi Desert. I was just following a track, and this one hit me by surprise. It came pretty fast. It was quite dark, and it lasted for about 45 minutes, so it was a long one. It was dark inside. And again, I was just completely lost. Like I said, although I was following a track, it disorientated me completely, and I was just, hoping for it to end as soon as possible. The whole trip in total took me 78 days. It was predicted to take 100 days. Luckily, I managed to knock 22 days off the predicted target, but purely because it's 16 hours daylight, you can just keep walking and walking. And the longest day I walked was 55 kilometers in 14 hours, which was a pretty painful day. I only done that one day. After that, I learnt the hard way. After resting for 8 days trying to recover in the settlement, once I made it, I left with a different attitude and with a more respectful attitude to what damage, the sun can cause, and the power of Mother Nature, should I say.
We've got more wild video for you. And you're thinking, what, Zaya? There's some people rowing, a little bit of splashing, but look carefully, and you're about to see a carp invasion, an Asian carp invasion.
Asian carp invasion. It rhymes even, but it's funny, but those fish are big. Like, they can weigh as much as a 12-year-old kid. Getting hit with one of those could really hurt.
No, it certainly can. This is a sort of an escape mechanism for them, and obviously they've been spooked a little bit, but wow, what a spectacular sight. They can jump up to 3 meters.
So this is just outside St. Louis, and as you might guess by the name Asian carp, those carp haven't always been there. They're a recent invader into North America, and every year we're keeping an eye to see when they get further and further north. They're not in Canada yet, but it's probably just a matter of time, so get ready for some fun rowing.
What a great day rowing. I love this.
Okay, coming up, from frogsicles to ants that thrive on heat, we've got 10 things you need to know about extreme survivors. Next.